We are Fandom Roulette.
Two nerds with a passion for
History,
video games,
tabletop games,
and, well, really any nerdy stuff that comes into our lives.
While we might not be able to name every ship classification in Star Wars,
Or every Pokemon.
or every spell in the player's handbook,
Well, one of us can.
we're still here to have a good time. Hey everyone, welcome to Fandom Roulette. This is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And on Fandom Roulette, we talk about a myriad of nerdy things, including history, video games, tabletop RPGs, and any other nerdy stuff that we want to talk about when we feel like talking about it. So that being said, hey Cody, what nerdy stuff have you been up to this past couple of weeks?
Nerdy stuff. A little bit of D&D. We had our one shot, if memory serves, or is that 2 weeks ago?
I don't even remember. Man.
Yeah, you know what? Now that we're on this new bi-weekly schedule, it's hard to remember. It's hard to remember what. But I also picked up this game that I'm not going to talk about on the video game section, which is kind of a wild concept to me. But it's called Moonlighter, and it's literally. I have a very weird taste in video games, like tycoon games, like Roller Coaster Tycoon. Like they hit this spot in my body that fills me with joy. But then I also really love dungeon crawlers where you go around and kill monsters. And this game takes both of those and puts them together in this kind of light, cute, mess of a game. And it's cute and fun. And you can basically you set the price on all the stuff, and people get mad if it's overpriced, and but people will also oh, this thing's way underpriced. Let me pick that up, and then you can fuck yourself over that way. It's been a lot of fun, but other than that, just doing house stuff and a wedding.
Sure. Oh, nice. So I have a question. Do you like board games? Oh, I'm blanking on the name of them now. Like resource management board games?
Yes, I actually own a copy of Lords of Waterdeep that I really enjoyed, but I can't play with Jess because she's way too good at them and crushes me every time I play it. So
fair enough. Yeah, no, it just sounds like if you like the tycoon style video games, those games feel like they fill a similar niche.
They do, and I love that they exist in a board game setting with other people.
Yeah, I agree.
But enough about me. What nerdy stuff have you been up to?
Oh man, I started the 8th Expanse book, which is one of the scariest books I've ever read, which is fun.
Cool, horror scary? Is it or is it I'm scared that this whole book's gonna fall apart, much like the last season of Game of Thrones?
No, not like that.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess some light spoilers for The Expanse.
Sure.
If you, so by the end of the first book, the protagonist and his crew discovered this stuff called the protomolecule, which is an alien semi-sentient machine that eats human flesh and then builds alien constructs out of it.
Delicious.
Yeah, and in this one, and then later on in the series, you find out that this aliens empire that built all of these amazing things got destroyed, and so they're trying to figure out what destroyed them, and a scientific team does this thing that activates an alien weapon that tears through their ships, and the description of the one character makes it sound like someone took a melon baller to the spaceship and to the crew.
Woof.
So it's this guy is missing part of his face, and she's missing a foot, and there's just parts of the bulkhead that are gone. And I was just oh my god, what the fuck?
Hell yeah, that sounds wild.
It's good. And then I also saw a film. I saw Godzilla: King of Monsters.
How was it?
I loved it.
Yes.
There's a meme going around It's like a scene from Infinity War where Thor's talking to the dwarven like forger on that dying star, and so it's like, how was the new Godzilla movie? Was it, or is the new Godzilla movie good? And Thor's response is like, well, it's like lacking in human drama, but has really good monster fights. And then Peter Dinklage's response, yes, that's what being a good Godzilla movie is. And I was like, yep, this guy gets it. I mean, like, yeah, like the human aspect was weak as hell.
Sure, but like, here's the thing about Godzilla movies, at least from what I remember, weren't they kind of like, almost like, kind of like telling tales of like humanity destroying the planet, and like that like whole thing was like in the form of Godzilla, but then when they translated, like when they pushed those movies over to the West, they were like, man, I don't think the US is going to be super thrilled about that. Why don't we cut out all that shit and just have monsters fight each other?
Yeah, there's like still little aspects of social commentary even in like the like American redubs of them. But like, I mean, everyone's really there for the monster fights. Like, yeah, like I remember there's like there's even confusion with some people about like Godzilla is like this ancient being who happens to be nuclear. He's not like a lizard that was like turned into a giant monster. But like the atomic bomb definitely woke him up. Like that part is very clear. But yeah, like, so this one had Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah, and a bunch of new kaiju, which was really cool to see.
Oh shit! I always love a good new kaiju.
Yeah. So like, yeah, they're definitely like planning, getting ready for like sequels. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I saw it at a drive-in, which was cool. Last week when it was like hellish rain, so that part wasn't super cool. But like once the rain let up, there was like cool like ambient like lightning strikes in the distance that like just really affected and impacted the movie in a major way, which I thought was kind of neat.
Damn, that feels like it would like really hit home. Like I'm kind of jealous that like that was like a thing that happened.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. So yeah,
nice.
But yeah. So yeah, this season this is the start of this is the start of a new season.
Yeah, yes. I think this would be the official first episode, although it is the second episode because we did the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, that's true. This is the first episode of our like thematic season.
Yeah.
How about that? There we go. Yeah, so we're talking about new subjects. And this season, I'm talking about, it's kind of like I'm not coming up with a super snappy title for it, but it's like views of the future as seen by the past.
Yeah,
I guess is the nicest way of putting that.
Okay, I like it.
And it's like it's one of those deals where it's like, this is me getting into some things like science fiction, like different philosophies, things along those lines, and kind of looking at how those before us, what their hopes of the future were, and also a little bit like how those hopes reflected their own times, you know?
Yeah.
So, as I'm a guy who's a huge fantasy buff, I've never been shy about my love of the fantasy genre. But, there's some people out there who argue that sometimes fantasy isn't necessarily the greatest way. Science fiction is a little bit better at, like, analyzing and, like, looking at the future. Because a lot of times, views of the future reflect the conflicts of today. But before we, like, dove into that, I kind of wanted to talk about a bigger idea, sort of a philosophy, if you will. That is called Futurism.
Okay, hit me up.
So, I want to ask your opinion, Cody. When you think of Futurism, what do you think of?
Futurism? I mean, Like, I think just the general, like, thought piece of, like, what the future's gonna hold, like,
Sure.
what kind of technologies are being produced and thought of based on, the issues of today.
Excellent. Yeah. I like that a lot. And you're like half right.
Yes.
Because I discovered something really interesting, which is that's what I thought of when I thought of futurist as well, right? Like sometimes when you throw out the word futurism, people will sort of say things like, "Oh, Jules Verne," or maybe Walt Disney, or Gene Roddenberry, those kinds of people. And so like that's what I was expecting as I was doing research for this week's episode. But what I found out is that there's also like a dark side to futurism.
Love it. Take me to the dark side of the moon, baby.
Let's go. So, all right. So futurism is, if you're looking at a textbook, is actually an Italian art philosophy.
Huh.
Yeah, so futurism was started by an Italian artist who I'm gonna find his name in just a second. I have it written down in my notes somewhere. Sorry, I have a lot of notes for this one because it ended up being much deeper than I realized. I have to organize my notes better. This is just like college all over again. So anyway, it was basically this idea that as the rest of the world was advancing, there were some Italian artists who felt like Italy was stagnating, if you will. So you looked at other specifically like other European nations, like Britain, France, and Germany. They had things like electricity and automobiles and airplanes and all of these really cool things. And it's not to suggest that Italy didn't have these things, but there were a lot of Italians who felt that the nation of Italy in general was too focused on the past. We were the nation that brought you the Renaissance, and look at these beautiful Roman artifacts. Look, it's art from the Baroque period, Baroque architecture, things like that. And there were people who were not super huge or fans of this. And so the leader of the group, there's people who might argue different things, but his name was Filippo Tommaso Marinetti. And so he was an artist who really wanted to bring Italy into what sometimes they would refer to as the machine age. That would represent like this sort of a bringing Italy up to the present and maybe even helping them advance into the future.
By developing Skynet.
Woo! It's for jokes, so you can't sue us. So Marinetti writes this whole thing that he refers to as his Futurist Manifesto.
Manifesto is, whenever I hear the word manifesto, it always has like some kind of like weirdly negative connotations. Like I'm gonna like listen to somebody talk about like how racist they are or something. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't know why, but like whenever like manifesto has like a very weird negative connotation in my head.
Well, get ready to have some confirmation bias happen. Because Marinetti lashed out at basically what he saw as things that represented the tradition of Italy, and wanted to destroy such things as museums, libraries, and feminism.
Wait.
Don't ask me about that last one. I don't understand it. I've read so many different things about Italian futurism.
I'm just imagining Just this guy, right? Furiously
Yeah.
writing in his notes like, yes, we have to burn down the museums, the
Yes.
libraries, women.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Wait, where did that come from? Like, who
Well,
was the guy who's like keeping him in check?
and like the craziest thing is like, wouldn't like one of the things about feminism is like by creating equality in the gender, like creating gender equality and stuff, like wouldn't that also help to advance your society?
I mean, yeah, you'd think. Like it seems like such a backwards approach to being, because the idea is he wants to move forward to the future in like in a good way. Like, how could you not, like, how could you think like, man, I think feminism is the problem here?
Yeah.
Like, what
And
the
that's
fuck?
I'm really glad that you said that, Cody, because I had the exact same thought process. I kept coming across it and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This does not jive with the rest of your crazy philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, we just write that one out. Someone just like crosses it out.
Yeah. Did he not have an editor? Like,
I mean, anyway. I guess if you're making a manifesto, probably not.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, so basically, like this idea kind of flourished into like an international movement, and basically you saw futurism being embraced by things like painting, sculpture, architecture, music, photography, cinema, all kinds of things. You started having people making their plans for the future, like a future city that's going to be more efficient. Lots of chrome and lots of like metals.
Oh man, I love a good like chrome future setting where like everything is just metal. Like, ooh.
Yeah, I know, right? It's good stuff.
Good.
In fact, this is actually kind of funny. So there was an Italian futurist painter named Giacomo Balla, who named his daughter Elica, which is Italian for propeller.
He was just like, you know what sounds good? I'm going to name you Propeller for the future.
Yeah. Because you know what represents the future is airplanes, especially in 1910.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. And they were still propeller airplanes by that point, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And then like another thing too that kind of helps, it's like its own distinct art period, or its own distinct art style, but a lot of futurists were like really jazzed about the idea of cubism. Once again, because they saw that as like a very futuristic way of like looking at the world. There's also another really important artist who a lot of, or rather, it was not an artist, it was a photographer and a scientist whose name was Etienne Jules Marais, who basically, like, his big contribution was he was a person who did time-based studies. So, like, like when you just take a bunch of pictures of like a person walking and you can like see the swing of their arms and things like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Cool. So basically, like these futurist painters really like that idea because they saw like it as kind of representative of futurism as well, because now you could see like the whole body in motion, and so they were very supportive of like these ideas and things like that. And so there's one other really like dark thing about historic futurism, which is that they were super jazzed about war.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Like, apparently, like, sometimes futurists would hold, like these rallies, and they would, like, show off their art. They'd be like, check out our cool futurist art. And they'd be like, check out this cool futurist poem. Also, you should, like, riot. And then, like, they would hope that the audiences would riot.
Oh, because, yeah, you know. I like to imagine that in a modern day setting, you're at a nice, like, you know, elegant museum, and you're seeing all this futurist stuff, and someone's like, over here from our famous artist, We have the futurist war scene. Here's a poem written by famous futurist artist, also talking about cubes and metal things. And would you like to sign our petition to start a fucking riot right now?
Yep.
Like, woof.
Yeah, they were also very jazzed about World War One.
Yikes.
And in fact, one of the leaders of the futurist movement, a guy named Boccioni, was trampled to death from falling off after falling from a horse. So that's fun,
man.
And then
this movement's rough.
Yeah, the darkest part about this is that they do end up becoming fascists.
God damn it.
Right? I mean, was it that surprising, Cody?
No, but I can hope, right?
So, I don't know when exactly this happens, but Futurism gets rebranded.
Ooh, nice. Going to the rebrand store. Like, look, we made some mistakes. We really like the future, but like, we also respect women, and also we don't necessarily want more bloodshed.
Yeah. Also, we're not fascists.
That too.
And so I feel like they retroactively start naming people futurists, but it's sort of become this term for people who are forward thinking and trying to make the world a better place and all of this stuff. And so a lot of times, like, when you say the word futurists, people sometimes think of the author Jules Verne, who I'm going to do a whole episode about.
Hell yeah.
So do you know who Jules Verne is?
I heard the name, and I'm sure if you told me the book, I would put two and two together, but off the dome, no.
There's a couple. The biggest one is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
That's
and Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Okay. Yeah.
He's also a leading leader of a leading leader. A lot of times his aesthetic is talked about or used by steampunk people.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's I always thought that was kind of an interesting latch on. Like when I see steampunk, that is especially the movie is very kind of early stage steampunk without actually being steampunk.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about it too is the fact that he was this guy who wanted to tell these cool stories, and so he had to come up with different neat ideas. And so he would just kind of draw pictures, and sometimes they don't end up being as practical as his as what they actually ended up being. So for instance, Captain Nemo's Nautilus is very angular and sleek and almost kind of looks like a gigantic shark, and there's actually a narrative reason for this, which we'll talk about when I get to the Jules Verne episode.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people just latched onto his aesthetic because it was he was developing these really cool things before the technology was even close to being there. And there are people who credit him for inventing different ideas of things. My personal favorite one is he wrote this story called From the Earth to the Moon, which depicts a group called I believe it's the Baltimore Gun and Rifle Club. That's we want to send some guys to the moon, so they develop a gigantic gun and shoot a bullet at the moon.
Yeah.
That's the most American.
Plausible.
That's the most American fucking thing I ever heard. Where they're let's just build a big gun.
That is a very American-ass thought. Let's just build a goddamn gun. Shoot that fucker to the moon.
So yeah, if you at home go and want to learn a little bit more about futurism and you just simply type in futurism, you're going to get a lot more information about the Italian futurists. That is still the primary connotation to the word, but there are people who have been using it to describe such people as like I said, Jules Verne. In more modern contexts, people said it about like Walt Disney. You know who Walt Disney is.
What if I didn't? How wild would that be?
That would be the most wild thing ever. It'd be like, I don't know, there's like a company called Disney, but like, I don't know what's going on over it. Like, is it the same guy or?
Oh God! Imagine a world where somebody doesn't know Disney or Walt Disney, just the whole thing.
Yeah, that'd be kind of.
That would be like my. I think my brain would literally shut down. It'd be like, I don't understand this.
Or imagine like not knowing who he is and then like learning about him, but like with like the critical analysis of like an adult, and being like, okay, so this guy, he drew a cartoon mouse. We're like, yes. Like, okay, cool, all right. And he pioneered animation techniques. We're like, yes. So he did a lot of adaptations of like classic fairy tales. It's like, yes. Okay. Then he decided that he wanted to start. Oh, he also did like TV shows. Yes. And some live action movies that aren't very good and no one really talks about them. Yep. Okay. Then he started a theme park. Yeah. He did. Okay. And now his company owns Star Wars. It's like, somehow it became the biggest company in the world. We don't know how it happened. I mean, I don't know how it happened because those theme parks are really good. But and they had like the 90s were very kind to Disney. But anyway,
the 90s were incredibly kind to Disney.
One last thing I want to talk about before I move it on, or before I we jump over, is real quick, the idea of Epcot.
I've heard the term, right? But I'm not sure if I know.
So Epcot is one of the Disney parks in Disney World.
Okay.
It's the one with the big silver ball in the middle.
I have seen pictures of said silver ball.
Yeah. So a lot of people today know Epcot as like it's just part of like the Disney parks. It was sometimes people want like it was imagined to be a permanent World's Fair, but Epcot is actually a shortening or an acronym for the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, which Walt Disney hoped would be a real city that would never cease to be a blueprint for the future. That's a direct quote from him. He wanted to build, or there are people out there who think that he wanted to build an experimental, like planned community in the middle of Disney World, Florida, to show people how much better the world would be if they listened to Walt Disney.
Damn. That guy. He was a guy.
For sure. And I'm gonna talk about this in general a little bit. Walt Disney was huge into like the idea of World's Fairs and things like that, which showed human progress and things like that. But I think I felt like this was a good jumping off point for like looking at these things in general, just the idea of how people viewed the future and like what their hopes for tomorrow were, things like that. In fact, I think Walt Disney has one of the most interesting quotes regarding the idea of being a futurist, which is he has this world called Tomorrowland, which was, speculation about what the world would look like in the future. And he has a quote, I might be paraphrasing here, but the problem with tomorrow is that tomorrow always comes. And so it's like, no matter how rad you made the, your like Tomorrowland look, like eventually it's going to look chinky and cheesy because our future and our world develops differently than a person's imagination. So,
boom.
Yep, that's my. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
When are we going to talk about Back to the Future? Because I'm going to be
episodes.
I'm so fucking jazzed for that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
That's actually a really interesting example of the 30-year cycle of nostalgia. Which we'll talk about a little bit as well.
Nice.
You know what else is another example of the 30-year cycle of nostalgia?
Huh.
Stranger Things.
Yeah. Actually, I knew that. I don't think I would have used those words because I'm not a smart man.
Yes, you are. Don't
But,
sell yourself short.
But it's definitely I don't know. I like to call them period pieces because it's definitely like trying to be a certain time period, which is cool, and I like that. But it's also trying to like also be accessible to the modern era.
And that, and it sort of it paints a more rosy picture of the time period that it's representing, just because a lot of times with like a 30-year cycle, the people who are making it were children when in the period that they're trying to represent. So things look pretty great when you're a kid, right?
Everything was great when I was a kid.
Exactly. And so like when when we're finally making content and stuff, it will be like the 90s and early 2000s and how great it was to live during those times. And like in the background, like, people have gotten a lot smarter with it, where it's like, like in the background, there would probably be like a news report talking about like, the, invasion of Iraq, as like our little kid protagonists are running around and having fun. But like still, it paints like a pretty rosy picture of the past. But anyways, now that I got that really fun, sad comment out of the way, do you want to go into the
middle section?
Hey guys, welcome to the middle section.
Welcome.
It's a part of the show where we tell you about our social medias. Hey, Cody.
Yes.
I want to send you a tweeter.
That's sweet.
How do I do that?
Well, the Fandom Roulette Twitter handle is fandomr_podcast.
Whoa, that's a nice Twitter handle.
Aw, thanks.
But like, I don't want to. It's short. Man, that's the worst one yet, huh?
Well, I mean, you win some, you lose some.
Twitter is a very short form way of communication, Cody.
Yeah.
I want to send you a longer thing about how when I heard Joe say futurism, I didn't realize it was going to end up in fascism. Surprise!
I think if you look hard enough into history, you will find that a lot of things lead to fascism.
Yeah.
So, if you want to write a longer response, you can go to fanroulettepodcast@gmail.com. And that is where you can send us an email about fascism or, other topics that aren't so dark and gloomy. But, send whatever you want.
Please make it somewhat critical of fascism.
Right,
that's my only request.
Yeah, I'm not looking for, like, fascism rules from, like, White Knight 420 at yahoo.com. Like,
damn, yeah, I wouldn't want that at all. That'd be horrible. If you're out there, White Knight 420, keep doing your thing, bud. Thank you for listening.
It's not a personal attack. White Knight 420.
We enjoy getting your listens every time. Cody, I don't want to give you my email because of hackers or whatever.
That's a fair point, and I got nothing to defend that one. So what you could do instead?
Oh God.
I mean, hackers are good, man. If a hacker wants to, I feel like at this point they can kind of get anything. But beyond that,
wow, dang.
I mean, anyways, you could go to www.fandomroulette.com, where we have bios, we have episodes, and then right at the bottom, right before all of our social media links, if you want to go through our social media there's a little area where you can type in your handle or your name if you want to tell us who you are, and then a little text box where you can write your dissertation about, life and how you feel the future is going to turn into the Matrix or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If I had a friend who really wanted to listen to your podcast, where would I send them?
Well, you could send them to quite a few places.
Whoa.
You can go to iTunes. We're on there. We're on SoundCloud. We're on there. We're on Spotify if you're feeling nasty. And then nothing against Spotify. I just felt that it just came off the tongue. Anyways, and then there's also Google Play. We're on Google Play as well. And wherever you get your podcasting stuff from. We're on them, or if we're not on them yet, we're going to be soon.
Nice. And are there other social media?
Of course there are. We're social, social medias. You gotta be on them.
That's their slogan.
Yeah, that's social media slogan. Social
media, gotta be on them! Exclamation point.
So we're on Facebook.
Nice.
You already know Twitter.
Yep.
We're on Tumblr.
What?
And on Instagram.
Whoa, that's so many different places.
Yeah. So that's where we put announcements for the next show. My wife does a lovely job at making really fun, obscure references to the different episodes. She posts.
They are nice.
Whenever we goof or have some kind of like content change, we'll be putting it on our social medias too, so that you know what's going on before they happen.
Yes. And is that it?
I think that's it.
All right. Back to the content.
Welcome back to the content.
Oh, I'm sorry I didn't see you come in there. Here.
I'm sorry. I'm working on some calibrations right now.
Oh, calibrations, you say?
Yes.
Are you Garrus Vicarian?
I am Garrus Vicarian.
Yes, I got a reference.
I don't
actually know if his last name was Vicarian, but my last name was. Yep. His voice was like very chill.
Yeah, his voice was really chill, and then like Turians had that really cool thing where like they when they talk, it was like listening to like 3 different voices in 3 octaves all talking at like the same time. So it was like kind of this weird like dissonance / harmony. I love Mass Effect. Mass Effect is
Mass Effect rules. I was gonna be a Krogan, but like I remember that Krogans like say the last name first and only refer to people by their last names, and I was like, I'm not gonna put Cody on blast like that. So,
that's fair. Thank you for not putting me on blast.
Hey Garrus.
Yeah. How man, it's just the same voice, huh?
I'll go over it in post.
Are you?
I'm leaving that one in too.
Hey, Garrus. Yeah. What is it, Joe? This is the best voice. What do you want to talk about? I heard Cody likes playing video games. Man, I'm just talking to myself. This is great. Cody, what video game do you have to talk to us about?
So, this season, I'm taking a different approach. I will be playing... What? Right. Yeah. They're still video game related, and I will still be playing video games. However, I'm not going to be talking a lot about the video game. I'm going to be talking about their movie adaptations.
Yeah.
We picked rather, during one of our conversations on the podcast, a absolutely horrific topic.
I'm so jazzed right now.
I'm telling you right now. So I did a Wikipedia / IMDb search for like all of, just like the collection of, AAA ish movies that came out and like what their like Rotten Tomato scores were. And like, I'm not super like, I don't know much about Rotten Tomatoes other than like the lower your score is bad. But like some people kind of argue that it's kind of arbitrary and like can change based on like, the fans and then the critics, quote unquote. And most movies up until Detective Pikachu are below 40%.
Oh, yeah.
So I am watching basically the bottom barrel garbage of movie cinema for the next presumably months.
We're talking Warcraft.
We're talking Warcraft. We're talking Super Mario Brothers. Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Assassin's Creed. But today of all days, I picked one mostly because I remember the games, and I remember the games being, and I'll talk about it. I'm talking about Hitman, the movie, today.
Oh, man.
And clarification for those of you wondering, the movie that came out in 2007, not the reboot in 2015, written by the same dude.
Which is called?
Hitman, Agent 47.
But Cody, what happened to the 45 in between?
I don't even know. I don't even care at this point. So anyways,
joke.
To give you...
I might have even gotten the math wrong.
Anyways.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, no, that was right. Agent 47, 46 before. That's how that works. Basic.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the Hitman games.
I said 45 because...
Did you say 45?
Huh. I don't think, well, wouldn't it be... It would be 2 to 46. Whatever.
Anywho.
I'm analyzing my own dumb joke.
So, for those of you unfamiliar with the Hitman games, they're still around. Mm-hmm. They are, the games came out, the first one came out in 2000, okay, which I believe was just called Hitman.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Were they a hit, man?
Oh, you wound me. Every time you tell me a pun, I lose a year off my life.
Shit. How you doing, bud?
I'm dying tomorrow. Anyways, I think they did okay. Because they went on to make like 4 more before the movie. And then they made a movie. So for those of you unfamiliar, the Hitman games were fun stealth assassination games. With a emphasis on stealth and deception by offering rewards like cash or weapons for not like raising alarms or killing only specific targets, etc., etc. And as the games progressed, as we get on to, Hitman 2, 3, 4, although they have different names like Blood Money and, My Keeper, fucking whatever. So, they're stealth games. Story has never been that good. Okay. I'll come out on the gate. And that's why I thought, man, a Hitman movie, if someone could just write a better story than the Agent 47 is a clone and his creator hires him to kill everyone involved with the project and then use other inferior agents to kill him when he finds out. And then something about the franchise, which is like another organization that does the same thing that Agent 47 does. That wasn't the point. Story was blah. But the gameplay was fun. Imagine if you will, not an open world per se, like Grand Theft Auto or stuff, but imagine like a big, like the inside of a mall.
Okay.
And there's people everywhere. There's different shops, and your goal in this mall is to take out the drug dealer who's like surrounded by all of his guards and stuff like that, and you have to do it without being detected.
Okay.
Kind of a neat idea. And you get all these kind of tools, like the iconic the iconic parts, like the things that I feel like should be in the movie. Agent 47 has 2 like silence pistols that he uses. One of the things that you can do is you can basically like knock people out and take their clothes and like kind of get into different areas dressed as like new people. So like, for instance, let's use the mall as the example. Like, if you find a mall cop and then you like, you knock them out, pull them away, you could dress up as the mall cop and get into places that you couldn't get into normally. And then also there's other things like, you know, there's stuff to distract people. There's a lot of environmental stuff. But basically, these little things, Agent 47 is like really absurdly good at killing people, and that's really all you need. His character in the games were very, like, you know, critical, but like they weren't characters. It was just like, I'm an assassin, I kill people. So
this is my creed.
Right. So honestly, the story was pretty generic, and the good bits were the gameplay. So I figured, man, after 4 games, 2000, 2002, 2004, 2006, Skip Woods, the guy who wrote, before this, Swordfish and Live Free or Die Hard, has the option and the choice to write a script for a Hitman movie. I thought it'd be a fucking no-brainer. Then I watched the film.
I can tell you loved it.
I loved it like I love going to the dentist. First and foremost, it is a generic spy thriller to the T. And even the synopsis, which is basically contract assassin Agent 47, born and raised in a remote compound, is tasked with killing the Russian president Mikhail Belikov when things go awry. Like, it's 2007, man. Like, we've done spy movies before.
Yep.
We have an entire, like, James Bond catalog at this point.
That we do.
Like, I can't imagine a more mundane or, like, blasé thing than assassin needs to kill the Russian president. Like, what? Anyways, the movie plays like a giant flashback, and you basically are following this, you kind of follow 2 characters. So you follow Agent 47, who is basically without, and I'm spoiling the fuck out of this because this is awful. And you don't want to see this. If you do, like, it's just for, like, the laughs. You follow Agent 47 as he basically finds out that, like, when he kills this president, he has a body double who pretends to be the president, and then the body double contacts his agency, Agent 47, to kill Agent 47 so that he cannot reveal to anybody that the Russian president is actually dead, and who has put in his place is a body double that has tricked the president. Are you with me so far?
What?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
So, the other person you follow is a Interpol agent named Mike Whittier, who has this, like, vendetta against this mysterious hitman. Like, they do a whole thing where it's like, he's had over 100 kills across the globe and can't even catch this guy. He's like a fucking ghost, blah, blah, blah. And he's got, like, this, you know, he's supposed to be the guy, like, I know so much about him. Although he has just described that he can't know anything about him because he's a ghost. And he gets away with everything he's done.
What?
So we jump back.
Yeah.
He kills the Russian president, confirms the kill, but his agency reveals to him that no, you didn't kill him, he's still alive. Like, there's a TV, like, there's a press conference with him with, like, a wound on his head. And so he's then tasked with killing somebody who saw him do it, which feels like a rookie mistake for Agent 47 with over 100 confirmed assassinations without leaving a trace. Yeah. So things are already suspect. Granted, this is all within the first 30 minutes of the film.
That's nuts.
This is, like, right. It's a lot of information just smacks you in the face for 30 minutes. And when the movie finally slows down, it gets super weird and uncomfortable because he kidnaps the lady who supposedly saw him, which is a lie.
Okay.
It was a crude attempt for the organization to get him out in the open so that one of the other agents could kill him. He interrogates her, basically rips her out of her home, jams her into the trunk of a car, and leaves with her. Basically because at this point, Hitman has done enough damage where if anyone found her, they would kill her because they thought she ran away.
Okay.
It's kind of a flimsy plot line, but bear with me.
I am.
And the Hitman is, for a lack of a better term, his character is just a sociopath. Like, he's got no social skills. He's very blunt. He doesn't care about people. He's just a generally shitty person. His job is literally murdering people. He's a shit dude.
Mm-hmm.
He does all of this to this woman. She still finds him attractive and wants to be with him at the end of the movie for no reason other than she says, please don't kill this one person. And he's like, fine. But then shoots his partner in the arm and basically breaks one of his ribs.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's ooh.
Mm-hmm. And that's why she finds him so attractive. Like, there's...
I mean, I get it.
Yeah, the big, strong, weird type, I guess.
Who doesn't shoot people if I ask him to.
Right. And by this point, this woman who is supposedly the president's mistress.
Okay.
All she is at this point is a literal object, a plot point, if you will. Like, whoever wrote this movie and whoever directed it and all the, I also found, I read this, and I'm getting ahead of myself.
Uh-huh.
So let me go back to this terrible movie.
Yeah, let's do it.
Most of the stuff that happens after this point is a lot of, like, setting up for the finale. And it's mostly just, he goes to the place with the girl. They have kind of witty banter, but it's more her being witty at him, and he's like, blah, 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 I don't understand human interactions. I'm a hitman. And then he goes and, like, murders somebody or does something awful, and then she gets upset because he's murdering people, but that's, like, his job, and he's doing it to save her and himself at this point. And it's all setting up this ridiculous, convoluted assassination of the body double. Before we get to that scene,
okay,
they're leaving. They're in Russia, and they're getting further into Russia to basically set up this assassination. The Agent 47, main character Hitman, is suddenly bamboozled in a train station by 3 other members of the organization, who all have guns drawn on him, 2 pistols each. There are 6 guns.
It's a lot of guns.
Instead of gunning him down by just not knowing what's going on, because there's a solid, like, minute where he just sees the one dude who's got the guns. They got their guns drawn at each other like a Mexican standoff. And then the second guy, like, mysteriously appears on screen, but he's also got his guns pointed at him. And then there's a third guy who shows up. So there's 3 dudes who are tasked with killing this man. But instead of just killing him on sight, they all start pointing their guns at each other.
Why?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Like, basically everyone is trying to point a gun at somebody, but there's not enough guns to go or arms to go around.
Okay.
So when they all kind of, like, get in closer, main character goes, if we're all gonna die, let's die with dignity. And all of them, no joke, pull knives out of the back of their suit jackets, because they have to wear suits and ties and stuff.
Okay.
Because they're assassins. But these blades are, like, the blade and the handle is, like, their whole back.
Oh, so
like how do you?
Swords.
Yeah, they're basically and there's two of them, and all of them have two like one-handed like short swords, and then they all start fighting. And because they're in a knife fight, he outlasts them.
Sure.
So, like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on anymore. So, anyways, rest of the movie plays out. He's, does all this crazy stuff. We get to the finale. Every little point, like he had to kill this one guy so that the body double would have to come out to go to that person's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
He did that to gain a favor from a guy, just some random guy at the bar. You don't know anything about him until the end. Then he captures a Russian police officer who's kind of like the quote-unquote bad guy for the Interpol agent. Like he's always kind of stepping on his toes. Hitman guy grabs him and basically puts him in a you die if you don't listen to me situation where he's like, you need to call your people going to the funeral and have them try to take out the body double. And this is all an elaborate plot so that he can sneak in as one of the Russian Guard soldiers. And that when everything goes to shit, he can basically kill all of his bodyguards and take this man to a safe place.
Okay.
And then the only reason that the Interpol agent finds it is because during a escape scene where Agent 47 quote unquote leaves his suitcase, he leaves the key to the place that he's going to kill this body double before he even knows that he has to kill the body double.
Sure. I'm confused.
This whole movie's fucked up. Like, it's trying to, like... It's kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine of bullshit. And, like, the whole payout is that the funeral starts. The Russian guy calls in the dude. There's a sniper somewhere. He shoots at the president, but he's behind bulletproof glass because, you gotta have bulletproof glass if you're in Russia, I guess.
Sure.
So then he flees with his bodyguards, who the hitman has infiltrated as. He kills all the other bodyguards, grabs the president. They have a weird kind of conversation where he's like, you don't kill me, I'll save your life. And that's after he kills another agent.
Sure.
With a lance. The agent has a lance. There's a lot going on in this movie. It's nonsense. I almost wrote my own little mini dissertation on this movie as I was writing notes about it. And it's convoluted as fuck.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And so he kills him. And then there's a scene where you hear the gunshot, or like you watch the scene, the hitman shoots him in the face or whatever. And then the camera pulls back to the guards outside of the room trying to break in. And without knowing what has gone on in this room, they just go, he shot the president, take him out. And so then a helicopter shows up and just starts shooting the building. Because, And so my thought was, how did they know that the hitman shot him? What if the president miraculously pulled the weapon away from him and killed the hitman? And now you just brought in an attack helicopter to kill the president. Long story short.
Yes.
That favor that I talked about very briefly was needed because he decides to... There's no way for him to escape. So he basically turns himself in and Interpol takes him because he's a big profile case.
Okay.
The buddy that he got the favor from was a CIA agent and his favor was, I need you to basically stop Interpol and get them out of the car so that I can flee. And so that's how he escapes.
Oh, okay.
He escapes by the favor, and it's like this long-winded, convoluted nonsense that they don't tell you about, and there's plot holes here. Like, I know there's plot holes. Like, I could sit here and talk about it for more. But basically, even with all of the iconic stuff, bald white sociopath, 2 pistols, signature coin, disguises, this was a white dude power fantasy.
Sounds like it.
And none of the characters are anything but like either plot points or obstacles. Like they don't have character. And I looked, I'm pretty sure there are about 6 females in the cast.
All right.
Oh, cast and crew.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And crew.
3 of them were credited as, and I'm going to, and this is straight from IMDb. If you look up Hitman, this is exactly what it says. First female news reporter.
Good.
The second one, Melikov's whore.
Huh.
And then the third one, another officer.
Oh, fuck.
This is bad.
That's some bad writing, yeah.
It's bad writing, it's bad representation. There's this weird romance that they're trying to force on you between Agent 47, who's he's a sociopath, and then this woman who is basically being psychologically abused by this guy in a attempt to save her. And sure, at the end he does save her, but like, I don't know if I'd want to, have a romantic affair with said person.
Oh, but he's bald and
tough and stuff. I almost wish, if I would have done this differently, I wish they would have removed the weird romance, remove some of the fight scenes, because a lot of them are very like cut smash, like you don't know what's going on. They're not like amazing fight scenes. There's some choreographed fights that look kind of neat, but most of it is just cuts, like smash cuts to like different things. It's hard to tell what's going on. But I would have probably made this closer to a noir style movie.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Where he's learning about this information, gaining intel. Sure, maybe there are deaths in the movie, but they're more like nuanced, and because this whole idea that this agent is this mysterious ghost killer who has gotten 100+ kills without anybody catching him. It's so bizarre to me that it's kind of an action flick where like he's got to fight like dudes with swords and stuff. Movie definitely did not age well.
What?
I don't think it aged well when it came out, but it did very little to make me feel like I was watching a Hitman game adaptation into a movie. Sure. Because like I think that's the problem, right? With all of these, like I feel like video game movies should have like, you should feel like you're in that world a little bit from a cinematic standpoint. Like I want to feel like I am watching this cool badass assassin who's never been caught before, But instead I get this like kind of, B-rate Jason Bourne movie.
Ooh, B-rate Jason Bourne.
Right. Like I wish it was, because if it was like Jason Bourne, I'd probably give this movie a little more credit. Sure. But it's not even that. It's just, bleh. It's awful. Really, and I'm not looking forward to the rest of this season.
I'm sure some will be more fun than others.
The Detective Pikachu episode will be better, for sure.
Where can you find this movie Hitman?
You can watch it on Hulu for free. Well, for the subscription fee of Hulu.
Sure.
You don't need to buy like the HBO or anything like that.
But it's
you
like
can
part
watch
of your
it
package.
Right, it's part of the basic Hulu package.
Right. I don't think I'll be watching this one.
No. Unless you just want like a good laugh, right? Oh. I guess.
Fair enough. I mean,
but like you wouldn't want to watch it for its Fair enough. So anyways,
yes.
Enough about video games.
Yes. Do you want to learn about some garbage children?
Yes, I want to learn about my trash cherubs that I've missed so much.
Yeah, I miss them too. Because this week we're talking about Zealot Rogue Witch.
Yes!
Zealot Rogue Witch is an elven cleric who is true neutral. Started off their life as a guild artisan and is part of the war domain. They knew who their parents were or are. Oh, I'm sorry. And Garbage Kids, we roll up a random character from a little book called Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And I know what you're thinking. It has a lot of things in it. About halfway through there are these cool charts where you can roll up a completely random character that we encourage you to use in your role-playing game or try it out yourself because it's actually a lot of fun. See what kind of weird character you can end up with for your D&D campaign. So yeah, as I was saying, Zealot Rogue Witch was a member of the war domain. They knew who their parents were or are, and they were born on a boat or ship. They have 3 younger siblings, and they were raised by a single father because their mother abandoned them. Not great, right?
Bummer.
They lived a modest lifestyle, and their home was on the street. Others saw them as
interesting choice.
Yeah, right. Others saw them as being different or strange, so they had few companions, and they became a guild artisan because they were apprenticed to a master who taught them the guild business. They became a cleric because they saw the injustice of the world, justice and horror in the world, and felt moved to take a stand against them. They come from a temple famed for the brewery it operates, and some say that they smell of the brewery's ale. And they have a pig whistle that reminds them of their humble and beloved mentor. And in times of despair, they feel that they are nothing but a plaything of the gods, and they resent their remoteness. Ooh.
Damn.
Rough.
Man, that's kind of down the middle for me.
They were 21 to 30 years old, and they have 2 life events.
Cool.
They gained a bit of good fortune, so they found a riding horse, and they worked in their job. Not the most exciting life event section we've had.
No, but you know what? Sometimes that happens. It's when you roll them bones.
That's life. So yeah, Zealot Rogue Witch, the true neutral ward cleric. Now we're gonna. Oh wait, I forgot to turn off the mute.
You know what? It's all right. I understand. Sometimes you want to have those like fun sound effects or whatever.
All right. So Cody, as the computer is putting its analysis onto it, do you think that when we're done with our Garbage Kids, man, it's been a minute. When we're done with our Garbage Kids, we put them through a very intense, rigorous test. Would they go into Hot Topic and buy something? Cody, what do you think about Zealot Rogue Witch?
You know, I'm going to say yes on the condition that they are so torn up and try to hide their presence while in the Hot Topic, but they just can't help themselves from getting the 30 Seconds to Mars t-shirt that they really want.
Oh, we've all been there, huh?
Yeah. What about you? What do you think? This one's hard, though. Like, I'm really split down the middle, because, like, something tells me, like, super good, like, what's a hot topic, and then, like, you know, like, those deep-seated fears, like, it's such a real character.
Exactly. I think that they probably go into Hot Topic, but they don't actually buy anything. They just kind of look around. The people behind the counter are, you know, trying to give them the crazy deals that Hot Topic has so they don't die as a business.
Right. Well, good luck.
I know, right? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen when this is such a thing of the past and no one knows what Hot Topic is anymore?
I mean, we're already almost there.
Right now, yeah, I know. I would say no, and the computer has spit out its response, and it says, "I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave." And now there's a glowing red eye that's looking at my every movement.
Gosh darn it, you forgot to turn off the self-aware button again, didn't you?
Daisy. Give your answer to. So anyway, that's the Garbage Kid.
Yeah. So, this season on the tabletop role-playing games section.
Yes.
Or just tabletop game, but I feel like we lean towards RPGs.
That's right. We did change it. My apologies.
No, you're fine. I did the same thing. So, this season, we're going to talk about Magic. And just...
The Gathering?
Yes. Probably. Maybe?
At some point.
I'm not super familiar with it, but I figure...
Really?
I mean, like, I kind of know the general rules, but, like, I don't know anything about, like, the world except for what I have in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, which I don't even know if that's, like, a fully Magic the Gathering setting or if it's a side setting or...
Fair enough.
What have you. So this season, we're going to talk about Magic, and I figure we just kind of get a little, like, we'll start broad and kind of work on topics. Because there's so many different types of Magic. And there's so many different ways that games have done Magic. And we'll, for the most part, I figure we'll try to stay within the tabletop section, since this is the tabletop, section of the podcast. But I mean, you've got your, and I'm going to probably butcher this, but like you've got your Vancian Magic, which comes from, the term I think initially comes from Jack Vance's Dying Earth.
Okay.
But Gary Gygax takes a lot of the fundamentals of that and puts it into Dungeons and Dragons, and that's where its popularity really soars. If you're not like a fantasy book like reader. But the general concept is that often this style of magic needs to be prepared ahead of time, and it's often finite. So like we've talked about it before, like spell slots. Like, that's a big thing in this style of magic. Or mana, or MP points and stuff like that. But also another big part of that is, like, you kind of have to be, like... You kind of have to be thinking very carefully about what kind of spells you're preparing. Like, if you're about to get into a big battle, you're not necessarily going to prepare spells that are, like, create food and water, or, cure disease and things like that. There's also Lovecraftian magic. If you're familiar with the kind of Call of Cthulhu or just the general Lovecraftian horror style magic, which is often incredibly powerful, but it's terrible. It comes with insane costs. It costs your sanity in general. Call of Cthulhu uses a really fun sanity mechanic where, like, even if you acquire these powerful spells, which take forever because they're in the farthest reaches of a library in a remote corner of the world, and even if you learn its terrible and powerful secrets, you still could lose the sanity of your character as a cost for the spell.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's like, pay with blood, or lots of blood, or just metric fuck tons of blood. Stuff like that.
How about some blood, though?
So how about that blood? And then there's two role-playing games that I haven't tried out myself, but upon looking at this and, like, reading about it, I was like, these sound really cool. There's one called Ars Magica, which... it's on when I was doing research, like, this came up a lot when I was looking for alternatives to your D&D style magic. Yeah. And this is, it's called Hermetic Magic, where you combine a technique or a verb and then a form or a noun in this case to create various effects, such as, like, create water or destroy fire. And in this game, as you grow in power, instead of just, like, gaining generally, like, you're just good at all magic, you have to pick from 5 different techniques and 10 different forms.
Interesting.
So instead of just being generally better at spellcasting, you have to kind of pick, like, am I good at creating things? Like, am I a conjurer, so to speak? Or maybe I really focus on fire. Maybe, like... Okay. Maybe I'm really good at doing anything with fire. And then also, like, the most, like, wizard ass thing is like you can gain power from reading, which is so wizard. So Ars Magica.
So
And then the last one that I looked up that I thought was kind of cool was called Mage the Awakening. Again, I haven't played this, but it sounds really cool. Basically, there are 5 towers of magic, which when you awaken and become a wizard, you become naturally, like, you have a natural affinity to one of these towers. But you can also, like, learn and read books and things and gain ranks in other towers. And each tower has 5 ranks. And each rank grants a certain bonus from, like, the low tier, like, 1 from sensing the presence of, like, say it's an undead or, like an elemental of some sort, to rank 5, which is, like, way more potent effects, such as, like, raising the dead or controlling the elements. And the cool thing that I read about this, the game encourages improvisation to the spells. Like there are, like, they give you some, like, kind of textbook spells, but, like, the idea is you create your own spells as long as they're within in one of the 5 towers. Which to me seemed like a very cool, like, idea, like being a little more freeform with how the magic works. Because a lot of them are, like, very, like, textbook, like, there's lots of rules and regulations on magic. So, because we are running a little longer than usual, I wanted to ask you a question and your thoughts on just the broad strokes of fantasy magic.
Sure.
In an ideal game, we'll just, like, you find out you've gotten the golden ticket to the RPG experience of your dreams.
Oh, whoa!
Right.
What's up, Willy Wonka?
Yeah, I am Willy Wonka.
Yep, that's his famous accent.
Yeah, and I've got magic for you.
Oh God!
What is this voice? I'm terrible.
I love it.
So, what magic would you want? Yes.
Yeah. You know what? I'm kind of fond of that. That last one sounded really cool.
Yeah, like something like freeform.
Yeah, I like the simplicity of just, like, naming what you want to do, and like a 2-word thing. So, like, create water or whatever. I will say, a system that I really liked or am enjoying is the Dresden File system.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Which is, there's 2 major schools of magic, which is evocation and thaumaturgy. So evocation is basically, like, in the words of the book / the rule book, is basically what you do to, like, blow stuff up, basically.
Cool, love it.
And then thaumaturgy is, like, summoning circles and, like, spell wards and things like that. So it's, like, lots of interconnected little aspects of magic. But the thing about the Dresden Files system is that there are 3 sort of aspects of magic that you draw from, which is your discipline, there's a better name for it, but I think it's called, like, your belief system, and your knowledge of lore. Okay. And so basically, like, let's say you have a very low, like, what was the first one I said? Very, very low discipline. Let's say you have a very low discipline, and you try to cast, like, a fireball. Like, there's a good chance that you might create, like, a wall of fire accidentally.
Ooh, yeah, I love that.
Or, and conversely, like, belief in yourself or like belief in the magic is an important thing. So let's say you have a low belief, you might not even be able to conjure spells.
Ooh, so, like, there's a chance that if you don't believe, kind of like the Peter Pan thing with the flying. Like, you have to believe in flying in order to fly.
Yeah,
that's
so, like,
super cool.
Yeah, you have to, like, give something to magic, and then lore comes in handy if you're, like, trying to, like, remember, like magical craft. And I believe it also allows you to learn more spells later on in the game.
Sure,
because, like, you start with like a set number of spells.
Right.
So, like, for instance, I chose evocation over thaumaturgy, which means that, like, I can create, like, a wall of earth and, like, a surveillance spell. And, like, I have a pretty good, like, discipline. I have a pretty good belief in myself. So it's like I can create, like, kind of focused. And, of course, the dice come into play, right?
Right.
That one, I don't know. That one's really cool just because there's lots of, like, variables to the magic.
Sure.
So it's like you first have to roll to see if, like, your belief in the magic is strong enough, and then you have to roll to see, like, if you're not going to accidentally, like, destroy a city block on accident,
Very cool. Very cool.
That one has a neat balance. Obviously, I'm most familiar with, like, 5e magic, so the Gygaxian one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will. It's interesting because I see benefits in all of them. I see cool things in all of them. There's something about the Dresden one, though, that, like, really makes you feel like you're earning something as a wizard.
Yeah,
because there's a balance there. So, what about you as a DM? Like, what do you look for in a magic system?
Well, I've grown accustomed to the Ventian magic, or the very Gygaxian. Like, there's a bunch of rules. Like, every spell has one of 3 different kinds of, like, either material, semantic, or verbal components, and they're all balanced by, like, how long they take to cast, what, like, if you need your hands to gesture the spell, like, could you wield a sword, and then also, like, the mana, like, just having, like, spell slots, so, like, I can only cast 4 level 1 spell slots a day. Like, that's what I kind of grew up on, so to speak. And while I like D&D and just that general one, I'm actually, like, in terms of magic, I'm leaning. I think I'm on the fence. Because when I read about Mage the Awakening and, like, the fact that, like, they almost encourage, like, creative spell casting, like, there aren't necessarily, like, there's not, like, a spell book, like, Bigsby doesn't exist, like, you have to kind of, like, make your own spells. I think there's a really, like, neat thing there that I would love to try out. I don't know how I would feel about it, but I also love the idea of sort of a Lovecraftian magic. Maybe not quite to the same scale as Call of Cthulhu, but I would love I don't know, down the road, I would love to homebrew a D&D setting where you had, like, and this will go probably closer to the non-magic setting that we're kind of loosely talking about for one of the episodes. Yeah. But I love this idea of, like, yeah, there's magic, but it's dangerous and volatile, and, only the best of the best can do simple tasks without blowing themselves up. Like, I love the idea of magic being this kind of, like, almost like dynamite in your hands,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But I also really love being creative. So, like, that's where I lean. I love the idea of Lovecraftian magic where, like, powerful magic comes at a great cost. But I also really love the idea of being able to, like, come up with my own spells based on, like, my affinity to the magical arts. So, like, if I really liked fire, or, like, my affinity was to fire, like, I would love the idea of being like, yeah, I want to create a spout of flames that comes off the wall in, like, a pillar, instead of just, like, I throw a fireball from my hands. Or I want to heat somebody's armor, like the heat armor spell in D&D, like, just being able to, like, come up with stuff on the fly. Like, that sounds really dope to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, maybe one day I'll settle on one, but for now, one of those two, or maybe a combination of the two. That might be cool too.
That might be.
Yeah.
So shall we wrap her up?
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to yet another episode of Phantom Roulette. we appreciate having you listen to us. Please tell a friend. Pass this along. See if someone might want to be interested in something along these lines. We ask you to rate, review, and subscribe. If the whatever system you listen to has those kinds of functions, things like that always are worthwhile. It always helps us move up those rankings, which is important. This week, what would if you could only have one spell that you could use in real life, what would it be? If you want to tweet at us using the hashtag that you can find in the middle section. And signing off for Fandom Roulette, this is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.